go ahead and get started. We have a really full agenda for this webinar. We're going to go ahead and get our screen shared. And if you have any questions along the way, at the bottom of your screen, you will see a Q&A function. Go ahead, drop your questions in that Q&A function. We will be doing Q&A at the end of today's webinar. And if for any reason another question pops up that you didn't think of during the webinar, go ahead, ask us, ask your CSM. We'll make sure that we get you some answers. This is from awareness to ownership, turning security culture into a measurable business outcome. And the agenda for today's webinar, we'll do some introductions for our speakers. We'll go over awareness versus HRM, the visibility problem, human risk scorecards, which we'll have a demo of, and then what's next. So let me go ahead and introduce our speakers for today. So today presenting, we have Mike Siegel as the president of Living Security. Mike brings more than 20 years of experience in driving growth, innovation, and transformation in the technology sector. And joining Mike today is Sandy Evans. As the principal product manager at Living Security, he has spearheaded innovative solutions focused on organizational security and resilience. So we are very excited to have both of them here today. Sandy, let me go ahead and pass it off to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're excited to see all you here. Thank you all for joining us today. We'll start with where we often talk about, right? Where the industry is and how we're looking to evolve that industry, right? So we have a lot of human risk leaders in the room in the webinar today at various stages probably of managing human risk or with their human risk management programs. But the reality is the majority of organizations out there are still measuring the success, measuring the effectiveness of their risk efforts through completion rates and phishing click rates. And while those are measurements and that is an indicator of engagement and maybe somewhat of an indicator of awareness, it's not focused on the outcomes, right? It doesn't give us an indication of whether those mitigations that we spent time, money, and energy on actually drove behavior change.
And Sandy, I think the industry at large is really coming to this realization, right? I think there are folks on this webinar listening now who probably have determined this maybe even years ago and have started to make a move towards human risk management from traditional security awareness and training, knowing that relying on things like, did people take my training? How many people are clicking on my phishing emails is not a true indicator of vigilance and risk within the organization. So pushing forward beyond those two statistics, having a much more robust way to determine the true security culture of your organization, that's really what this webinar is all about. And hopefully folks will be able to get some good insights into how Living Security is continuing to push the boundaries of innovation when it comes to driving human risk management. So we look to others as well as thought leaders, folks who are helping frame how this market is evolving and the narrative of where SAT programs need to go in order to truly be risk aware and to have a real impact, an impact to be quantified internally. So Forrester Research is definitely one of those firms. Janan Budge, as the lead analyst who covers the human risk management space. We had the pleasure of spending some time with her last week at the Forrester Security Conference here in Austin, Texas. And she is absolutely honed in on this idea that security and awareness training, as it's been traditionally defined, is really going away. And that transition to human risk management is one that is going to benefit everyone, every stakeholder within the organization, mostly the folks who have been the program owners for security awareness training, and giving them the ability to tap into new kinds of metrics that they can share with their management, that CISOs can share with their board, that actually provide real indication of the level of vigilance within the company. Sandy, maybe you can walk us through a few of those.
Yeah. So and that's to that same point, right? It is that impact is not the same as engagement, right? And so impact is measured by how behaviors change, right? What percentage of the users are adopting secure behaviors? What percentage of risky behaviors are decreasing, and are the risky behaviors that lead to incidents decreasing, and are they sustained over time? And that's really what the focus of Forrester is, and that's really what we seek to do in our conversation about human risk management, right? Take these abstract ideas about security and vigilance and risk and make them concrete and measurable and actionable ultimately.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we know that, 80% of breaches involve a human element, right? But I think that we collectively, as a cybersecurity industry, pay too little attention to how we can affect that that issue. And we, as Living Security, wanted to get some answers ourselves. We wanted to understand what kind of actual quantifiable impact were our customers seeing as they were using our Unify solution over time. And so we brought in a third-party research firm called Scientia. Scientia is the team responsible for the Verizon DBIR report. So they're a credible firm. We provided them with anonymized data across 100 of our customer tenants over several years. And through that data, they were able to extract some pretty interesting insights here, Sandy, if you want to walk
Yeah.
us through that.
Yeah, it is exciting. Across 100, more than 100 organizations, they found that just 10% of the employees drive 73% of human cyber risk or are accountable for that much risk. And so that means that the majority of the organization is not the issue, right? It's a subset of the organization, and that we need the visibility to know where that is and to focus that. And they also found that not surprisingly, that visibility companies who have mature HRM programs have that increased visibility, actually 5 times the visibility of those companies that are just focused on security and awareness training. And with that visibility and with the ability to see where that risk is, right, we can effectively demonstrate the drop in risky population in just 1 year. So our unified customers in just 1 year saw a significant drop in the risk because they could surface where that risk is. They could take targeted action for that, and then they could measure it over time. And not only are we reducing the risk, but we can see that it's sustainable. It's a change that sticks, right? And
Mm,
so they
yeah.
also saw that after taking action, yeah, people are staying out of that risky state for longer.
And what I also thought was really compelling about the research is they were following a program over a period of time. So when we talk about like mature HRM programs, first of all, like that could be a loaded term, right? Like there's a lot
Right.
of programs are at various stages of quote unquote maturity, but from kind of day one to day 365 over the course of a year, as programs start to evolve, as they start to identify risky pockets of users, they start to intervene with very targeted context specific interventions, and then they can observe behavioral changes post intervention. That's where these 50% drop in risky users, that's where the 60% drop in risky time of risky state, that's how those were observed. And I think that's the time-based proof, right? That through this methodology of identifying risk, targeting risk or intervening risk with very specific contextually relevant mitigations, and then observing whether that sticks and being able to quantify how it sticks, that is the full life cycle of an HRM program. And it could take a year to see that end to end. But once you're in that realm of showing those wins and reporting on that progress through the CISO up through the board, most organizations want more of it, right? They want to figure out, well, what's the next cohort of users that I can start to kind of hone in on and build a program around. And that's when it gets really exciting.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's serious ROI right there, those metrics. So Mike, do you want to talk about kind of how we get there with all the risk signals?
Yeah, and for some on this webinar, you're really familiar with Unify already. Others, this may be the first time you're learning about our system, and it is different. This is not a typical solution or tool that you've known about in the cyber industry for the last decade or two, right? This is a new technology that's using a different approach to address that soft underbelly of the enterprise today. Again, the human and their involvement in potential security issues and breaches. So it all starts with data. Data is the key to unlocking this potential. And how Living Security addresses that is we have this very open standard, open API capability for ingesting a lot of data. We bring in millions and millions of events and incidents and identity types. And we do that by integrating with the security and identity stack that you probably already have deployed within your enterprise today. We're not creating a net new sensor. We're not deploying an agent. We're just taking the data that is already being created within your tool sets. And we're bringing it together into our system and using AI ML. We're looking for correlations. We're looking for interesting patterns that are all centered around an individual, a human being. And that in of itself is unique, right? If you think about how a SIM works, yes, it's bringing in similar data that we are. It's bringing in event data. It's bringing in incident data. But it's generally centered around, an asset, right? Or a vulnerability or an exploit. We centered it around a human. And that's why some people refer to our system as kind of like a SIM for human risk. And so once we've normalized all of this event data, and all of the aliases associated with a human, we can build this very three-dimensional view of a human being's activity, the threats, their behaviors, their access. And those happen to be the three pillars by which we conduct our calculation on their level of risk or their level of vigilance. So starting with identity and access, who is this person? What is their persona in your company? Do they have privileged access to crown jewels and sensitive information, or are they a fairly junior employee with limited access? Clearly, if the person with privileged access were to be breached, the blast radius of that breach is going to be far higher than someone with limited access. So that's an important attribute that we need to take into account as we're considering the risk or vigilance of that user. The second attribute is behavior. And we look at over 300 different variables here. So everything from, is this user clicking on phishing emails or simulated phishing emails? Are they maintaining good password hygiene? Are they using MFA or not? Are they uploading in bulk sensitive data to the internet? There's over 300 different characteristics that we can pull in from your existing security tools that give us little indications, little hints about this person's susceptibility to being breached, right? If they were to be attacked, how susceptible are they for that attack to be successful? And that brings us to the last piece, which is threats. The actual attack environment surrounding that person. Are they a frequently targeted individual who's receiving inbound real phishing attacks to their inbox? That's important to know. Are their credentials currently sitting on the dark web? And so you've got some credential exploit vulnerability that's going to happen right now. Also good to know. So by combining these three attributes of identity, behavior, and threat, we have this very robust picture of a person's baseline vigilance or risk profile. And we populate that in the form of a score. In fact, a couple scores. We've got a behavior specific score that many of our customers share with their end users so that they're aware of their activities and how to improve them. And we have a human risk index, which CISOs tend to use in their board packs to show a baseline of we were an HRI that was not very good when we started this program. But over the course of 6 months, as we've identified risky users and we've intervened with those users, we've been able to increase our vigilance and reduce our risk. And it's something quantifiable that the board actually resonates with. So Sandy, maybe you can walk us through kind of what happens next.
Yeah, so from that we have a breadth of actions we can take, right? And this is not a one size fits all. It is based on the risk that we observe in the platform for that subset of users, that Mike mentioned. So, we may have, for example, if we want to just shore up some behavior, maybe something that people know about and need a reminder about, maybe using MFA more or password manager, that might be a targeted training or just sending a nudge or an email to them. Also, we may have users who are highly or under a lot of threat. Maybe they're getting a lot of phishing emails or being targeted by malware. and we don't know what their behaviors are. Maybe we want to send a targeted phishing simulation to see how they respond, and then potentially train them further based on that, right? So bringing those signals together and taking action based on that. We might alternatively have someone who's exhibiting an insider threat profile. Maybe they're, as Mike mentioned, sharing sensitive data outside of company policy or something. And for that, it may not be an engagement we want to do. We may want to go and, trigger an outbound remediation in the identity tool like SailPoint, or change their access in a tool like Netscope so they can't go browse as much. So, we have this plethora of things we can do based on the change that we want to make. We will talk a little bit later about more around the AI orchestrated actions, and how we're planning to use AI more to facilitate actionability in the platform. But as you guys know, first we want to talk about manager scorecards, and the building up of visibility and accountability of the security culture across the organization.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that as security professionals, who are the vast majority of people on this webinar right now, Sandy, they've put a lot on their shoulders and feel accountable to changing the security culture and increasing vigilance for every employee that they engage with. Um, but they can use some help, right? They can
Absolutely.
use people on their side who also feel that level of accountability, and ultimately, right, we determine through detailed conversations with our customers that those people are management. That's the management layer who can ultimately have a strong hand in ensuring that their employees are indeed adhering to security culture and increasing vigilance.
Right, absolutely. Like and that's what this statistic is about, right? Basically, this statistic, as you said, Mike, means if my manager cares about it, then I'm going to care about it. If they're bringing it up with me and they're talking about my security score, then I'm intuitively gonna care more about it, and be held more accountable around it. The challenge is, as Mike already said, that you can have a mature HRM program. You can have some level of maturity around uh, areas of risk in your organization, but currently that visibility all rests with the security team, and the burden is on you to change behavior and build that culture from your team. And just as you said, Mike, that's where we think manager scorecards can really help, right? It is scorecards. We have been using scorecards for years as a vehicle to create visibility and accountability across the workforce. Manager scorecards, as many of you probably know, is kind of our second feature around scorecards. We have a large percentage of our customers that are doing end user scorecards. They're creating that gamification. They're building that accountability. And we have a lot of success stories about that. But it's still the burden is still held by you guys, by the security team, and answering all the questions from those end users. And we really see manager scorecards as that next vehicle, right? That unused, untapped potential of really driving security culture in the organization. Um, so let's jump into what that looks like. And I'll just switch my share real fast here.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I really do think it's kind of, think of it like deputizing the management layer within your enterprise to kind of lock arms with you as security professionals, and share that responsibility of ensuring security culture. And we've talked to various teams who are incorporating security vigilance and security best practices into performance management conversations, for example. And so, we're going to measure it, and then you can manage to it. And that really is the idea.
Yeah, yeah. So I first want to attack this kind of from your perspective. So as a security professional, many of you already have Unify. Are you using Unify often? Maybe already doing in user scorecards. You're probably aware of this page. This is an identity page within Unify. But now you'll be able to, as a security professional, view that scorecard for the manager. So basically, let me kind of take a step back and talk about the difference between end user scorecards and manager scorecards, and where we're going with scorecards. So all of our end user scorecards have been emails that we send on a quarterly or monthly basis, as we mentioned. Manager scorecards, we're taking a different approach, which is a dynamic, personalized dashboard that any user can access. So all we need is the identity source and specific attribute that you use to define who the manager is. And we can use that to build the whole employee hierarchy. And then that creates basically every individual has their own login and can view their own dashboard to see specifics about their team, where they stand, and where they compare, how they compare to the rest of the organization. So this is your view as a security team member. I just wanted to show that preview. I'll switch over now and kind of sit in the chair of the manager, right? So I've gotten that nudge, I've gotten that link, and I click into my dashboard, use SSO, and this is my personalized dashboard. It's live, dynamic, up to date, and personalized for me. Before I jump into it, I'll mention this is very much brandable and personalizable for your company. You can change text, you can update logos. I haven't done all of that here, but that is something we can certainly talk about, and your CSM will be happy to do with you. So I come in and I'm presented with my team score. As Mike mentioned, we have two scores: the behavior score and the human risk index. The behavior score is really for those end users to consume. Those people who are not as focused on security every day. They want to kind of answer that question of like, what can I do to improve my score? What do I have control of, and how can I improve it? And so that's what the behavior score is. They get a quick overview of the behavior score, that it's up 0 to 100, and it increases with vigilant behaviors and decreases with risky behaviors. I also have this kind of flyover that gives a lot more detail about the behavior score that this manager could use. Again, this could all be personalized for your organization. So quickly, as I mentioned, I can see how my team is doing, right? I have a 12-month trend of my team and how we compare to the rest of the organization. I also can see, and this is kind of my team, so my direct reports. In this example, I have 6 direct reports, and I can see of those 6 people, the behaviors that are contributing to this score. We're a 72. That's pretty good. Probably could be better, a little better than the org average. Some good things to highlight, right? Everybody, all 6 of us have reported a simulated phish. All 6 of my direct reports have used MFA. That's great, but we do have some risky behaviors that we could go and look at and think about and talk about improving. And then we also have things that we haven't observed, but if we did observe them, would be affecting the score as well. So just kind of a quick overview of that score. And then as the manager, if I want to get into more specifics, I can look at those individuals, right? So I have these 6 direct reports, 4 of which have their own teams and their own users who report to them, so I can see details there too. Yolanda, for example, has a great score, and her team has an even better score. So, what would I do as a manager here? Maybe I want to celebrate this. These guys are real security champions within the organization. I can drill into this team, Yolanda's team, and kind of see, man, they're really doing great. Maybe I really want to get this other Yolanda Johnson, some real kudos for being a 99. But a lot to celebrate here with this team. Alternatively, I have Miss Davis here, who has a much lower score, right, and is pulling our whole team score down. So I might want to have a performance management meeting about that and kind of talk about things that we can improve here, because not only is her score down pretty low, but her team is also pretty low. So maybe we need to make this something that's more on the forefront of Miss Davis's team. As a manager of managers, you saw here that I have teams I can also just drill into my whole org. So you'll note, these are the counts. If I switch to my org, I have visibility into everyone that reports up to me. So you can see that the score is different because now it's taking all those other users into account for this score. So we have a better score, and I can see these counts across all of the identities, and some areas where we may improve. You'll note these are the similar items of what I saw for my teams. It looks like my team might really be dragging down all of us. So something I could go and do about that. So a lot to see, a lot to dive into, and all dynamic real time. So always updating and available and personable for these users. I'm sure many of you are looking at this and thinking, wow, this is great. This is a lot of information. I'm going to be inundated with questions from managers of what to do. And you're absolutely right. And so we just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that, right? What's this? Now's your time, right? We are trying to take the burden off of you. You're trying to, expand visibility into security risk, and managers are probably going to come to you and want to help. And so, a couple of words of advice: start small, focus on one or two high impact behaviors, right? Maybe make sure that your MFA is up and celebrate that. If you see some risky things, maybe just focus on one or two and start there. Talk about it, keep this visible and a part of everyday conversation with your team, because that really brings so much to the organization. Because then, when the security team is sending out their mitigation activities, sending out a training, it's no longer like, oh, I need to go complete this training so I stop getting overdue emails. It's surrounded by context, right? I know what my score is. I know what taking the training, how that's going to improve my score. It's all so much more relevant to me when I have that visibility into my score and the security profile of my team. Celebrate wins, as we mentioned, Yolanda's team and others for being champions, and stay connected. Continue, tell your managers to continue to give feedback so that we keep moving this program forward, and moving towards that mature HRM that we talked about, with visibility and building outcomes.
Very cool stuff, Sandy. And I think that as folks start to get into the product and start to use these manager scorecards effectively, there's going to be a recognition that this is a new way, another way, as you showed on a previous slide, for intervening, for taking action. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what HRM is all about. Sure, we want to raise visibility to pockets of risk or pockets of vigilance within the organization. We want to pinpoint how things can be improved. But if we stop there and we don't take action, then really, how are we affecting the organization's overall security posture? And that's a lot of what our roadmap is about as a company. And so I think at this point, we'll transition to talking a bit about what's coming next. If you were able to join us at our HRMCon conference in October, you got a bit of a preview of this, and we're really excited about our AI native future. And we'll be launching beta in early January. We've got a beta sign up list, but this is really going to be us pushing the boundaries of what HRM can provide and making it more accessible to you and giving you an effective way to drive results quickly within the platform. Taking a quick step back, if you think about kind of the history of this industry and our company, which pretty much coincide, you know that Living Security was founded in 2017. We were founded to disrupt the legacy security and awareness training market with more immersive, engaging ways to help users, help employees up their knowledge when it comes to security, and make them more vigilant security champions to support you as security professionals. We then launched Unify in 2021 with the notion that awareness is only as good as your ability to be tailored and contextually relevant to the end user. And so bringing in data across the security and identity stack, as we've discussed earlier in the presentation, utilizing that data to pinpoint very specific risks and then have contextually relevant ways to intervene. That has been the definition of human risk management as Forrester created the wave in 2024. And we're very happy that they placed us as a leader here. But we are not resting on our laurels here. We believe that there are ways, based on our experience, to continue to push the boundaries and help you be more effective. And so this is the AI native HRM that I'm referring to, and that we are just about to launch, and we're excited for you to get a chance to see it. And then, just very briefly, I will say that we have ideas even beyond this HRM platform coming out in January as we look to think about the workforce of the future to include AI agents and how we can be effective in identifying the risks associated with AI agents and then providing the ability to remediate just like we do with humans. So perhaps maybe one day human risk management will become workforce risk management in the eyes of Forrester as well as yourselves. And we're actively thinking about that today. Okay, so when I talk about an AI native human risk management platform, we're not doing this just for the sake of having a nice buzzword here. This has to be about driving value into our platform so that you, as our user, are able to show that value more cohesively, more efficiently, and more effectively. And we've been obviously looking at AI for quite a while now, and we believe that the technology has now matured to the point where we can do some pretty fascinating things within the platform. Ultimately, speed becomes one of the main attributes. And if you have speed to understanding and evaluating risk, you have the ability to move from detect and respond, which is kind of post event, to predict and prevent. Predict and prevent is the missing piece in most enterprises' cybersecurity strategy. If I can evaluate a potential breach that may unfold and I can see those cookie crumb trails occurring, this is a big data problem, as you can imagine, then I can start to impact that and I can stop those cookie crumbs from ultimately leading to a breach. And I can negate something that probably was going to happen. We have enough data now over years of breaches, understanding how breaches evolve to understand the patterns that lead up to them. And so, very much part of our experience is surfacing using AI to surface those patterns that could represent a future breach, and then guiding a team. Think of it as your own AI assistant sitting within our product, guiding you to what a potential mitigation could be. How should you intervene? And then human in the loop, of course. Would you like our AI agent to go and intervene? Would you like the agent to go take an action? And of course, if you say yes, you do, going and actually orchestrating those actions and saving you an incredible amount of time when it comes to pulling together a campaign or an engagement sequence. Let's let the AI do that. Let's let you focus on the strategy. So let's dive in a little bit deeper in the next slides. And I think I've got a video or two that can show you that. So ultimately, AI inside the platform as a native functionality is going to accelerate value, get you to value quicker. It's going to give you a measurable workforce risk reduction. So again, we're very metric oriented here at Living Security. We want to help drive even more reporting, contextually relevant metrics that you can use for your management, for your leadership, and your board. We want to help the security team save time. At the end of the day, there are so many tasks, probably 60 to 80% of tasks that are manual today that with proper use of an AI agent could be automated. And that's going to free up your team to be more strategic and to be more thoughtful about how they want to run their program, ultimately leading to a positive security culture. We do not believe that humans are the weakest link. That's actually a bad phrase at Living Security. We think that humans can be a part of your security defense and the human firewall. And if you engage them properly with the right information and you give them good instruction and good nudging, and then you congratulate them when they do the right thing, they tend to want to do the right thing. They're going to tend to want to be on your side. So all of this is kind of the reason we're moving forward. And of course, the human in the loop is an essential part of this. That's you. That's your team. We want to be the assistant, right? The co-pilot to you, but you ultimately are running the show. So we're calling that assistant Livy, right? A little play on words with Living Security. But Livy is going to be your partner within the tool, helping you understand what you're seeing in a conversational tone, helping explain the kind of risks that Livy is evaluating, piecing together all of that disparate data, showing you the cookie crumb trail, right? This is explainable. Here's the evidence. Here's what's unfolding. You are 2/3 down the path of a potential breach. Let's intervene now and prevent that last 1/3 from occurring if we intervene now. And giving you that recommendation in a way that you can explain it to other people as well. Because we know that outside the security team, that security vocabulary and awareness and understanding really starts to dilute. And so you want to be able to speak in a way that people truly understand and get why you're asking them to take a behavioral change. And then, of course, we want to be able to celebrate the champions, the people who do it right. And we want to use Livy to automate a lot of that celebratory engagement because you might forget. It might not be the highest thing on your list. But if you had Livy kind of proactively going out and giving people a pat on the back, giving them a nice nudge, and you kind of set that in motion, you're now building that positive reinforcement as well. So there's a number of things that we believe Livy is going to be able to help you with. In January, we're going to be able to provide Livy as a beta test for you. We're going to have the ability at some point in the future for you to engage with Livy on our website. This is really going to be an exciting capability. So it first starts with Livy as an HRM expert, right? Understanding and knowing the kinds of risks that lead to a breach. Livy's going to have all of the data of breaches in the past available to Livy so that she can see those patterns as they're emerging and providing you that forecast to the fact that you might be on the path towards a future breach. That is that predict side of Livy's capability. The guide, as I described a few minutes ago, is in plain English, in terms that anyone can understand. Here is what is happening, and here is what we think you might want to go do next. And that's when Livy will provide you with a recommendation. Say, would you like me to take this action? Yes, you would. Allow Livy to go and act and send that nudge, launch that training, create the scorecard, automate remediation. Those things that today require manual work within our platform, Livy's going to be able to do on your behalf. So here's a mock-up of kind of how Livy could work with you. Obviously using some simulated data here, but think about this as a time-based risk progression. There's a variety of things that are happening over time associated with this employee. There's certain behaviors, there's certain inherent risks based upon their identity and their access, and there's a variety of threats that are coming in. Livy's seeing all of that and pulling this all together to say, I'm seeing a pattern unfold here that looks like it could result in a breach. And Livy's going to make some recommendations. You can see here Livy's suggesting MFA. That's pretty important. If you had MFA as a backstop here and you required it of this user, you would have the ability to essentially thwart a future potential breach that might be targeted towards this user. And so you might ask Livy right there, hey, can you help me launch an MFA campaign? I want to make sure this is mandatory. I want to train them on proper usage of MFA. Livy says, absolutely, I can go do that. Would you like me to go? And you say yes. So Livy definitely can help with that and then provide you with action, right? The actions that I just described, actually launching some new content, perhaps creating content that never existed before inside our platform. So using generative AI, where you can specify what you want the content to include. Maybe it needs to be very specific to your organization and your application stack, or it needs to be aligned to your corporate policy in a very personalized way. Livy is going to be able to create and generate net new content in platform specific to your requirements, and then auto-generate campaigns and push those out to the right people with the right content in the right place. So this is a huge time saver, we believe, and is going to be something that you're going to lean on to help actually run these interventions as they move forward. Another video here of kind of Livy in action. So here you're asking Livy to create, right? So think of this as kind of a design studio where you're determining what is the training I want. And from this demo here, you're describing your content. You're saying, I want to engage with a training module on phishing, and I want to engage with my sales team, right? Build me a training module that's specific to phishing and that my sales team will be able to digest. Livy thinks through that, says, okay, I know what sales teams need to hear. I'm going to create this. Here's my outline. Would you like me to generate? Yes, I would. Livy creates your training module and it's ready to go. Okay. So a lot of those manual tasks that you deal with today, deciding what content, making sure it's tailored to exactly what you need, loading it up into a campaign, selecting the users, pushing it out, monitoring whether a user took it, following up with people, nudging people for this or that. All of those activities can be automated with Livy. And that will give you opportunity to become more strategic, to think more strategically about how you want to run your security program, and give you the ability to show those results faster and more effectively over time. So, in summary, this is our AI native future. This is what's coming around the corner for us. We're very excited about this. We believe that Living Security is in a really interesting place to be able to deliver this. We've got 5 years of experience in delivering human risk management success in some of the largest organizations in the world, right? We've gone through the learnings, we've had some stumbles along the way. And through that learning, we can incorporate these best practices, these workflows dynamically within the product going forward. So there will be more to come on Livy. There will be more to come on the new Living Security platform. This is just a preview, but we look forward to engaging with you more as we get closer to our launch.
Thank you so much, Mike and Sandy. So we have just a couple minutes left. I think we have time to do a little bit of Q&A. You guys ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Let's do
perfect.
it.
We've had a couple questions come on in. What do I need specifically to get started with scorecards?
Yeah, great question. Love a question like that. We just need to know the attribute that we will use to determine the manager of everybody so that we can populate those manager scorecards. That should be pretty simple. And so we just need that and we can turn them on. So reach out to your CSM and they'll be happy to work with you to get that going.
Perfect. Perfect. Here's another good one. What LMS does this product integrate with to identify training completion, or does it only work with the training that Living Security provides?
Good question. I can take this one too, Mike. Yeah, so we are certainly integration agnostic. So if you have training data that you want to get into Unify, we can do that. We do have a number of standard integrations with some other training providers outside of Living Security. We also have many other ways of getting data in. So that is generally not a problem with any of our customers.
I mean, to be even more blunt about it, we integrate with our competitors' products,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly.
if you have data coming in from another solution provider in the security awareness training or HRM space, we'll ingest that data and we will incorporate that within our risk scoring. We'll incorporate that within the visibility we provide. And should you want to then push out training specifically to an end user based upon our risk identification, and that training is authored by someone else, that's perfectly fine, right? Ultimately, as you saw from my Livy discussion, the generating of content going forward is not going to be that difficult, right? And so, we don't believe that content is really where the decision lies going forward. What we want to make sure is that we provide you with the intelligence so that you're providing content to the right person in the right context.
How can scorecards be personalized for my organization? Do you have any examples?
I don't have any to show, but yeah, we can go through. I mean, absolutely logos and those things. I talked about the flyout and anything you want to put in there, including a link to an internal page or something like that. We also could add personalized information around the behavior score or any high level description you want to put in there. So a lot of options there.
Wonderful. Looking
I
forward
guess I
to
should mention, we also can hide insights or categories of insights if you decide you don't want managers to see those and be concerned about those. So that's something we do with our current end user scorecards, and that'll be available as well.
I think that's great. Really making scorecards a personalized experience for each organization, for each user to really touch on exactly what they're looking for within that. And then moving on to Livy, when will Livy be available?
Yeah, so Livy is currently, and the new Living Security AI native platform is currently in development. We have a sign up list for our beta. We will be opening up our beta to beta customers in January. So just really around the corner here. We'll be using most of January and February to work through that beta with those select customers, gathering their feedback. And our plan is before mid-year to be fully in a general availability state with the Living Security platform featuring Livy.
And I'll just add, if you want to be on that beta list, there's a link in the chat. So sign up and let us know.
Thanks so much, Sandy. That's exactly what I was just going to say. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We will go ahead and get this webinar sent out as well if you'd like to review it. We do have the beta sign-up list for the AI native platform in the chat. Of course, if you have any questions that we were not able to answer today, please reach out. Your CSMs and the rest of the Living Security team are really happy to go ahead and work with you, get those questions answered. And thank you, Mike and Sandy, for presenting. This was really fantastic.